Mr. Lamido Abubakar Yuguda. I hope I'm correct. So very quickly, can you just take us through your profile, after which we'll just take one or two questions that you would also like you to answer.
Distinguished senators, good morning. As I said, my name is Lamido Abubakar Yuguda. I was born in Gombe in June of 1963. I attended my primary school in Gombe and Gamborungala in Borno State and Biu, and I went to secondary school in Biu. I went to government secondary school, Waka, Biu, which still exists to this day. I attended Ahmadu Bello University. I graduated with a BSc degree in accounting. I had my National Youth Service Corps scheme in 1983 in River State. I joined the Central Bank of Nigeria as a senior supervisor in 1984. I retired from the Central Bank of Nigeria in 2016 as director in charge of Reserve Management Department. During my career at the Central Bank, I also had a 4-year secondment to the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. as an economist, where I worked in the African department of the IMF. I'm currently the DG, Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'm married with children.
Given your current role as the DG of SEC, meaning that you regulate the capital market, from my end, I would like to know how the role, the new role that you are about to take on. How do you think that the monetary policy decisions that you will also be taking on will impact the capital market, and what positive difference in terms of monetary transmission will it have on the role that you currently have as a capital market regulator?
I think this is actually very, very significant. If you look at the Central Bank of Nigeria and the capital market, we are actually all operating across the same yield curve. The only thing is that the Central Bank is operating within the first 12 months of the yield curve, and the capital market is actually operating beyond that yield curve. So the monetary policy signals generated by Central Bank at that shorter end, they actually have an effect, throughout that entire yield curve. So that is why today we actually do have regular meetings between the Central Bank and the Securities and Exchange Commission, plus other financial sector regulators in the FSRCC meetings, that's the Financial Sector Regulation Coordination Committee meetings. So this is really, my being on the MPC will actually enhance that collaboration and will really, showcase the Nigerian financial sector as really one with policies, both in the monetary sector and in the capital market that are in harmony with each other.
Because you are DG of capital market, I don't know when your tenure will expire. I am not very clear as to whether this nomination is in your personal capacity or in your role as DG capital market. Do you understand? So, meaning that you know the tenure of this role if you are confirmed, and so if you are representing the stock exchange, which is not provided in the act, it would be nice for you, or maybe CBN would wish to clarify how this will play out.
I believe that my appointment by Mr. President is really on my personal capacity because of my extensive years of experience in the Central Bank and in the International Monetary Fund.
Don't you think being the DG of our Exchange Commission and sitting in the board of Central Bank, you will not have a conflict in doing your job, because this can also lead to some conflicts in making decisions by the central bank, especially in the monetary policy. Do you see any conflict by sitting here and sitting there? Possibly you are nominated because of is an institutional representation or as a person. I join my colleagues to also want to know when you are retiring from the Exchange Commission. Thank you.
You asked if there was any conflict of interest. I'm actually not been appointed to the board of Central Bank. I'm being appointed only to the Monetary Policy Committee. So there is no conflict, and I have already answered that question in relation to the distinguished chairman's questions.
I just want to believe that the appointment of or nomination of the DGSEC is apt. It's very, very important because there is going to be collaboration in terms of working relationship between CBN and SEC. Okay, and I want to believe that that is very important.
I really thank you for your confidence. I've worked with you since I've been DG of SEC on our various committees, our Finance Committee, Committee on Capital Market, and I really thank you for your leadership. Thank you very much, sir.
Today we are struggling with Forex, and the dollar, naira is just somersaulting downwards. I want to know, in your opinion, do you think this is being manipulated, or this value is the real value of naira? And in your opinion, what role do you think you can play in helping to stabilize the naira?
One of the core mandates of CBN is price control. What do you think that can be done in view of the fact that the prices of goods today is skyrocketing? Nobody can, our naira is almost losing value. What do you think that can be done differently to return to normalcy?
Is the value of the naira real? Really, sir, I will say it's not real. It's not real. Because what you are seeing, the value of any currency is really the value of the goods and services that that currency can buy. If you take only the labor part of it as part of the services, if you take the work we are doing today, probably we are doing even more work than the one we did yesterday or last year. Yet, the salary that we are being paid has just been dropping in value, both in terms of its exchange value and in terms of its purchasing power. If you go to the market today, you cannot buy the same basket of goods that you used to buy even a few months ago. So this is really not real. And I think there are things we can do. We have a lot of, we have created a lot of money, fiat money. And anytime you have fiat money, you have to be extremely careful about how you go about managing it. And when I say fiat money, I mean paper money that is not having any intrinsic value in it. Money that has intrinsic value is something like gold. Okay? You can use it both as money and also as something that has intrinsic value. You can actually do jewelry with it. Women who have jewelry can actually sell their gold today and still realize the same value or very close to the same value that they had when they actually bought that jewelry maybe many years ago. So there are things we can do to make sure that fiat money does not lose its value. And what are those things? You look at those things, they are enshrined in the mandate of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Price stability, issue of the legal tender currency, which is what we are talking about here, keeping an adequate reserve of external assets to guarantee the international exchange value of that currency. And these things are extremely important. If you miss any of them, and they have to be taken together, so all of these are actually interrelated. If you take any one of them, separately, then you miss it. So you need to know how much naira supply will your economic activity support. So there's a link between money supply and the nominal GDP. You also need to know how much external reserves you need to hold. And when I say external reserves, I mean the freely available reserves of the Central Bank of Nigeria that are not encumbered by any liabilities. So you need to know, if you do not have this much reserves, then your currency value is actually at risk. So as a central banker, you need to both protect the value of the reserves, actually do everything you can to enhance the value of those reserves, and also be very conservative when it comes to printing your own currency. Because if you freely print to do a variety of things, then you can actually get into the kind of trouble that we have today. One of the things, I mean, if you look at our laws, actually, all of these things have been, legislated. You cannot lend to the government, for example, more than 5% of its previous year's revenues. And that loan has to be retired before you can actually start anew. I think if you look at all these things, we have actually done the wrong things. I think what the central bank needs to do now is to go back to the real doctrine. And sometimes people look at banking is different from central banking. And I think it's very, very important to make that distinction. Central banking is really about the activities of the monetary authorities and how they should have all these different levers. So key to this is the central bank's balance sheet. You have the assets and you have the liabilities. And the liability is really the reserve, the money that we have actually issued. Okay? But those assets should be, among those assets, one of the most important is foreign exchange reserves. Thank you, distinguished chairman.
You've been in the central bank for a long time before going to SEC. And you know that the central bank, all their activities are purely based on monetary and fiscal policy with serious neglect to the capital market. So now that you are going to be on the MPC, what will you do differently that will make central bank to balance their financial policy to make it inclusive of the capital market?
Good monetary policy is really at the foundation of everything that we do as an economy. So the capital market also requires good monetary policy. Apart from that, we will actually be able now to present a voice of the capital market on the Monetary Policy Committee. Because, distinguished chairman, you know, you are a banker, that there are times, former banker, once a banker, always a banker, distinguished chairman. There are times when monetary policy could actually work at cross purposes with, the capital market. And the capital market is really that market for all of us. When the government has, a deficit, that deficit, can be financed by the central bank, can also be financed by all of us through the capital market. And when you want to achieve better economic outcomes, you actually should finance your deficit mostly through the capital market and not through the central bank. Because the central bank is actually printing your own currency, and that is inflationary, that actually brings a lot of instability to the system. So if we have monetary policy that is also in sync with the stability of the capital market, I think we actually do have a capital market that will be more responsive to the needs of our country, as an economy.
I'm actually glad that you did mention that the value placed on Naira today isn't real, and that you mentioned prominence on the fact that we have a situation which you term the fiat money, whereby our money is losing value. But then you also hinted about the fact that we do not have, or it would have been a preferred situation if we had tangible means of valuing our currency. You mentioned gold. And then that now took me to do a little research on the central banks in the world and their gold reserves. We all know that Nigeria, right from I think when I was in primary school, we had the whole old Atlas books, which had certain states as having quite a large reserve of gold. And we know that we have been exploring gold time after time. I don't think we have an actual place where gold is being processed, barred, and probably even stored in the central bank's vault. And if you permit me, from the gold organization, the World Gold Organization, Western Europe has, the central bank in Western Europe has the largest gold reserve in the world, followed by North America, then Central Eastern Europe, Asia. Now let me come to Africa. That's the central banks in Africa with established gold reserves. We have as Africa and Saudi Arabia together, of course it's all teamed together. We have Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia. Why don't we have a gold reserve in CBN? Why don't we begin to store our currency in measures that are tangible and will have value? Please, can you explain what your role in the MPC will be with regards to ensuring that the numerous gold reserves in the country will not just be exploited for export, but will actually have value for our country?
Distinguished Senator, we actually do have gold reserves in the central bank. Not many people know that, but as part of the job that I had done at the central bank, my department was also responsible for the gold reserve, not in terms of its custody, but for making sure that that gold reserve actually exists. And every year, I used to go down into the gold vault to make sure that all of that gold is, properly, audited. The gold is still there. Okay, so we have gold reserve. But I think what your question really is getting to is that our gold reserve is very small relative to what other countries like the United States, the UK, Japan, actually have as gold reserves. And that's true. Even in Africa here, our gold reserves are not among the highest. And I agree with you that we do produce a lot of gold in Nigeria, and that gold should be harnessed, refined, and melted into bars that the central bank can actually buy to add. Because the last time we bought gold was actually in the 1960s. Those gold reserves that we are talking of, the last bar was actually bought in the 1960s. So we really need to add, to our stock of gold. Now, in the capital market, we promote commodity exchanges. And one of the commodities exchanges, actually, is in the business of promoting the mining and the refining and the trading, of gold. And I remember that they actually did come to Abuja last year with, some of the gold bars and, made some presentation to the Honorable Minister of Finance as I led them to that.
So thank you. We would say that you may not think about, you may leave us for now.
Thank you, distinguished.
Thank you. Can we have the next, while we are waiting for the next distinguished colleague, I believe that what I would like to say is that please, as we interview and we take responses from them, please note your